Welcome to our website. I am Steve Spear, President of Fire Service Safety Testing. We are a ground ladder test and inspection company, and I am a member of the NFPA Board on Ground Ladders. This portion of our site deals with the damage we have found on ground ladders, apparatus road vibration. Watching this should help you with your truck specifications, inspections, as well as watching for existing apparatus problems. The NFPA 1932 Chapter 4 is related to ground ladder mounting. It's a requirement for all ground ladders. The ground ladders shall not be forced into their brackets. They shall be protected to prevent movement and abrasion or other damage. They should be kept away from heat, and they should have sufficient support to prevent sagging or distortion. Whether the ladders are mounted externally, like you see in the picture, or they have a rear slide-in style, or they're on a hydraulic lift, road vibration occurs to the ladders from lack of padding, lack of support, loose fasteners, and weak springs. Basically, if you can grab the ladders and shake them, they're not mounted on the apparatus correctly. Whether it's during construction or adding on to existing apparatus, be sure that the items are not protruding past the brackets. Items like this can not only damage the ground ladders, also notice how the ground ladder is rubbing on the light bracket. In this slide, there are 4 problems. The first is the ladder is riding on the dog assembly. After a while, it could damage it and cause it not to work. Also notice the damage to the bolt. The second problem is, as you look at the side of the pumper where the arrow is, the ladder is missing the rubber padding that was designed to keep it from vibrating against the truck. The third problem is, notice the design of the bracket itself. The halyard at the bottom of the bracket is bouncing up and down and actually doing damage to the halyard and the cable as the truck is traveling down the road. And number 4, there is no padding on the top of the truck bracket, so the ladder is riding metal to metal. Not only is the dog of the ladder riding on the truck bracket, but it also rubs on the rung. If you look at the padding, the bolts are sticking out. Putting padding on with bolts this size when you have road vibration is pretty much useless because the movement of the truck during travel allows the bolts and the ladder to make contact. The name of this picture is "The Ladder Brackets Do Not Protrude Out Far Enough." When we look at this picture a little closer, we can notice the damage to the door, we can notice the damage to the latch, and we can also notice the damage to the screw. Now we're going to check the damage to the ladder itself. This is why checking and testing is very important. Looking at this picture a little closer is why people ask us why do we test, and here are the reasons. This is probably the most common problem. When the ladder locks are loose, the springs are weak, or whatever the combination is, the roof ladder is allowed to rub on the rungs of the extension ladder. If this situation is left unchecked, it will result in the ruining of the section of the 35-foot ladder. This is one of the methods that we use to put on the rungs to protect the ladder from further damage. If your ladder slide into a rear box, but it has an opening in the front, or the ladders slide into a pump enclosure like in the picture, there are a couple of considerations to watch for. The first and most important is inclement weather allows salt, sand, and much moisture to travel down into the box unnoticed. The second thing to watch for is when the truck is washed, the ladders are forgotten and lay in their brackets dirty and wet. Pump valves and control arms often rub on ladders, causing severe damage as they protrude into the pump enclosure. The other thing to watch for is where the frame of the body and the frame of the pump enclosure meet. Be sure to examine the area and be sure there are no protruding frame rails causing damage to the ladders. This is an example of the beam damage it causes. This is another example. Look at the plate at the top, then look at the ladder below, and you can see how much the ladder was bent and damaged. Notice the padding around the control valve in this pump enclosure. Whether they are trucks or pumpers, there are several items to watch for when you store ladders in the back inside boxes. If you notice in the picture, the ladders to the right are laying down. Make sure you store each one in its own rack, and that the box is closed off in the front to seal it off. In my 14 years of experience, this is one of the better ways of carrying ground ladders. Things to watch for when you're using this method is if they get wet or dirty, At the fire scene, they are probably loaded on the compartments and forgot about. Be sure each ladder has its own bracket and ladders are not stacked on top of each other. The ladder to the left is stored on the beam. When you store ladders on their beams, it allows the ladder to rub back and forth from left to right. Notice the channel at the top of the ladder. It is only 2 or 3 feet long. The remainder of the top of the ladder is unsupported. If you look closely at the top of the ladder and the top of the box, there is very little holding the ladder from rubbing back and forth, and it wears on the edge of the beam. Some of the things to watch for are: be sure the front of the box is closed off to keep road debris from entering into the ladder area, and watch for anything protruding into the box area such as bolts. This is an example of a hydraulic hose from the aerial device protruding into the ground ladder area. An additional example of hydraulic hose entering into the ground ladder area. This makes the ladder difficult to remove, as well as wears on the hydraulic hose itself. In this case, the ladder fits loose enough or is allowed to lean enough so that it actually rode on the edge of the channel. As a result of this, the ladder has scrapes on the beams, damaging the ladder and also damaging the labels. An additional problem when the ladders are lying on their beams is, if the ladder is put away wet, or if there's water laying in the tray, it can corrode the side of the beam of the ladder. Be sure the manufacturer builds the ladder brackets of sufficient material to not allow for any sagging, as noted in Chapter 4. Note in this close-up, the ladder bracket has bent because it was not made of sufficient material. In another case we had, the center cross section was too weak, and the 35-foot ladder was laying in it and actually sagged or arched enough in the middle so the ladder wouldn't open. Hydraulic lifts are a neat way to get the ladders up and out of the way. Watch for when you use this method: road vibration, and road vibration. This is another example where the hydraulic lift box nested the ladders over the top of the pumper. The ladders were not latched sufficiently to keep them from vibrating. Be safe. Whether you're speccing out new apparatus or solving problems with your existing, we hope this presentation has helped you. If we can be of any further assistance, contact us at Fire Service Safety Testing.